Okay, welcome to Into the Channel, podcast primarily about women's football. Before we hit the pitch, if you enjoy the show or love women's football as much as your boys do, come kick it with us already. We are doing this every single week, spanning the wide world of women's football. Subscribe, follow YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to watch or listen, at ITC_pod on X. A bunch of other places on the internet you can find us. I am your host, Dino DeCespedes, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Grant Engel. What is up, man?
I'm feeling fantastic, buddy. I would say it's a pretty entertaining match 2 days ago.
Ooh.
I know we're getting to it a little after the fact. You know, Dino and I, we talk about the day jobs. So pardon the delay. Thank you for the patience. But yeah, some pretty interesting happenings in that one.
Yeah, you might, for those that were patient, you might get rewarded with a little bit of an exclusive, courtesy of the ITC. We'll get to that in a second. So, USWNT 3, South Korea 0. A lot to talk about. A lot to talk about, especially for ITC fans, especially for your boys. Where exactly do you want to get started, Mr. Grant Engel?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, we got a lot of options here. There we go. Sounds delicious. I don't know. I mean, typically we start games in chronological order. I'm trying to think of what would a logical starting point be. Should we start with the beginning of the match, you think?
No. So,
okay. Okay.
We had some momentous happenings. You know, if you want to rewind back a week, you know, props to you calling out Coach Emma Hayes, putting her feet to the fire, sitting her in the hot seat. You know how we do here at the ICC. My boy Grant asked for 20 minutes.
So,
can we just get 20 minutes for Lily Yohannes?
That's it.
Can we? And got it done. But that wasn't the end of it. I then came over the top a little bit. I'm like, what if it's incredible? That was my honest question. I'm like, yeah, I want to see it. I want to see the chemistry. I want to see if she's up to speed or whatever. I feel comfortable saying it far exceeded my expectations. I just about lost my mind. Where was your head at? As Lily's getting onto the field, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking, okay, cool. She's getting the 20 minutes that I had asked for, so that's a fun little coincidence. And I just thought, okay, she's going to take some time, get into the game, get a couple touches on there. We've talked about it during her entire run with Ajax that we've been following closely, that we've been covering in the Champions League. She's going to be patient. She's going to be smart. She's going to look good out there. Have faith. I trust our eyeballs in our assessment of this player. And yeah, she got into the game, buddy.
She got well into the game.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of interesting when she did get on. It did seem like the ball wasn't quite finding her. Mm-hmm. But then there was that first touch with the inside of the boot, kind of over a defender to Rodman, who couldn't quite corral it, like it got to her. And I was like, that was pretty slick.
Yep.
And I think the first thing I noticed was that level of decision making felt quick.
Yes.
It felt pretty instantaneous. Good vision on that play. And it was just the ball was just pinging off her boot to exactly where it needed to go next. That was the first thing I noticed.
Yeah. Her very first touch of the match was just a very cool kind of get the ball on the half turn, help it swing over to the right side. And that's where I was like, okay, I'm emboldening my own take here. She's going to be smart. She's going to take her time, help the ball swing around. Yeah, and you're totally right about that little pass to Rodman. That first pass to Rodman, we'll call it. Mm-hmm. That was great. But then comes the Patrick Mahomes fucking laser, 30 yards down the field.
Let's go.
Aerial through ball. What are we talking about? You remember that match? It was happening in Eredivisie Vrouwen in the Dutch league, where we were watching the highlights. We were reduced to the highlights because we couldn't watch the full match, where Lily hit a through ball and the announcer goes, "Oh!" If that Dutch guy was sitting at home watching that U.S. women's national team, when he hit that long pass to Rodman, I guarantee he had the same reaction.
Big ooh.
Huge ooh. Huge Dutch ooh.
I want to also give a shout out to a great Twitter account at OptaJack, who dropped some just fantastic stats for Lily Yohannes. 18 minutes. 19 passes attempted, 19 passes completed.
Let's go.
1, 2 of 3 duels, 1 for 1 on tackles. 1 chance created, which is coming up soon. And that's not even the Mahomes laser up the field. She also found Trinity Rodman, who nearly decapitated the crossbar. And I
Oh
just
my goodness.
absolutely love when you can see the rain explode off the woodwork because the ball was just struck so thunderously. That was just,
Awesome.
I mean, I don't want to compare this to Rocky, one of the great sports movies, but it just
Sure.
felt like her impact was growing with each touch, with each step, with each kind of like sprint, with each kind of like track back.
Yep.
And the plays were getting more and more impressive.
Yeah.
He was just kind of cranking up the volume on the match. I was at a loss for words, absolute loss for words.
It was incredible. I think that is such a great way to put it. It was everything was just getting progressively more comfortable, a little more daring, more confident. And then what do you know? Rodman has the ball on the wing. In comes the cross. I love the instinct and the wherewithal to go, oh, okay, yeah, let me drift back away from the goal into the space. I think the ball goes, I think Swanson and Smith both let it go through. And there's Lily with the ball at her feet, around 6 yards out. We get a fucking goal 10 minutes into her national team career, man.
Oh, man.
Come on, 10 minutes in?
I mean, sports movie shit. What else can you say? You know, your boy had to do it. So I put the call in to see if we could get Lily on the show.
Sure.
We must have been one of 1,000 shows.
I would guess.
But I did ask her a question. She follows your boys on ITC, so appreciate you, Lily. Shout out. So I asked her, your vision, decision-making, and instincts were all 100% on point as you're stepping onto the field and during the 20-plus minutes you're on. What are you telling yourself to allow you to have such an impactful debut? That was what I was curious about. Like, as a 16-year-old, mentally, how do you even wrap your head around this? It's incredible. Lily got back to us and she says, and I quote, when I subbed on, I was trying to be in the moment and take it all in. Stepping onto the pitch, I was locked in. Let's fucking go. That was my interjection. She didn't put that quote. And was just trying to play my game. I knew my role when I came on, so executing that and trying to make an impact. Getting my first couple of touches to get comfortable and growing into the game as it progresses. Scoring was such an amazing moment. The team clearing the bench to come celebrate with me was super special, super grateful for the opportunity, end quote.
Look at that. Reporter Dino getting the exclusive quote. We got sources out here, man. Look, we're a plucky little podcast. Speaking of the Rocky movies, I feel like we're running through the streets of Philadelphia right now trying to grow the podcast. But enough about us. Perfectly described by her, obviously. She's the one who lived it. To have that confidence and that composure at that age, you know, we've been careful this entire time covering the Champions League. You don't want to heap too many expectations on a young person like this. I just think, and you don't want to take too much from one game. You don't want to take too much from 20 minutes in one friendly match.
Yep.
I just think it is pretty obvious. We're talking about a special player here.
Absolutely. I mean, it's funny to hear her say first couple of touches to get comfortable and grow into the game as it progresses. It's exactly what we saw.
Yeah.
So imagine kind of coming on with that mentality and you have the skill set to be able to execute and just have a massive impact on the game, win player of the match. Just wild stuff, man. Where do you want to go from here?
So I mentioned Trinity Rodman hits that pass, and I think it was both Smith and Swanson who kind of dummy it and let it go. And so let's talk about a nice little wave of substitutions in the 62nd minute where the U.S. women's national team brings on Sam Coffey and the aforementioned Sophia Smith, Mal Swanson, and Trinity Rodman. Immediately, the attack starts to look overwhelming when you bring on those four players, but the three forwards specifically. Sophia Smith gets a goal 5 minutes after she steps onto the pitch. After Rodman sends it in, you know we love an acute angle here on the ITC. That's about as acute of an angle as you could get. She's what, at an 87% angle when Smith finishes that?
Max acute, absolutely. And what I loved about that too is kind of her persistence on that.
Hell yeah.
Swanson again, kind of trying to backheel it.
I love that.
To Smith, who probably had a better look. She just was not going to be denied. Like, she was just like, okay, we'll stop here, work around. And the wild part about Smith is she puts the ball into that spot, forcing herself into that acute angle, knowing that she could fucking bury it.
Yep.
It was wild.
I think her balance and her feel for scoring is even more elite than I realized. And she's a 2-time Golden Boot winner in the NWSL. And it's just like, damn, she's even better like than you really think. Like, she plays on a great team for the Thorns. She was the number 1 overall pick. But when you see it, when it gets unlocked on this U.S. women's national team, and we talked at length about the struggles in the 2023 World Cup. But once she is playing with confidence, which you see this with a lot of forwards, is like goals sometimes beget more goals and more goals after that.
Mm-hmm.
And she just has a level of freedom with those 2 other forward players in Rodman and Swanson that now she's like, yeah, I can dish. I mean, she's basically LeBron James, Luka Doncic. I'll drive and dish. I'll drive and finish. I'll pull up and shoot. Like, I got everything in my bag and I can just use it wherever.
I mean, you look at it, still just 23 years old.
Yeah,
so this is not even a finished player. Like, this is a player that's going to continue to get better. Not even her in her prime yet.
Yeah.
The thing that I kind of overlooked a little bit is her athleticism.
Sure.
She had some plays where in a short burst, when she got a little sniff of the goal, I mean, she hit max speed in like 2 strides, which, she's not really thought. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say she's not thought of. I don't really think of her at that same, kind of pacey kind of play. And maybe she's more in a short, like 5-10 yard window. She's as fast as anybody. I mean, like, she just got shot out of a cannon a couple of times when she got, a little bit of a look at, okay, this might turn into something. And, we talked about the World Cup a bunch. Mallory Swanson's just an absolute difference maker.
Totally.
Like, she's smart enough to know, okay, I've got a look here, but somebody's got a better look here. In the ITC personal record book, absolutely an assist to Mal Swanson. I know it's a friendly, which I actually watched one of the replays in Espanol, and I learned that a friendly is called an amistoso. How about that?
I love that.
Doesn't matter. Mal Swanson, you're awarded an assist on that Sophie Smith goal.
Hell yeah.
Anybody who disagrees, just take a walk.
Get out of here. Vamonos. Yeah, I feel like, we love a good hockey assist here, even though we don't watch much hockey. I feel like Rodman and Swanson got to get the assists on that. 2 assists on that 1 goal. Easy money there. And, and that's not to say we're talking about these 3 super subs in this scenario. Obviously, they're going to start the majority of matches in any match of like real consequence. But you're also bringing on Sam Coffey to absolutely slam the door shut on any kind of offensive attack your opponent's going to have with her as a defensive midfielder. So that wave of subs at the 62nd minute, when I saw him come on, like at that point, we're working backwards here in the match. I'm still like, okay, I'd like to see you guys bring on Yohannes here, but these 4, nice combination.
I definitely shared that sentiment. Also, that must have been what it was like, the dream team when, Jordan and Barkley and
right.
Magic and Larry Bird are checking all at the same time. And, you got poor Angola over there trying to figure out what to do. I wanted to kind of make a quick note on Emma Hayes.
Sure.
Because, and we'll talk lineups here in a second, so I want to preempt that just a little bit.
Yep.
I thought it was really clever by Emma Hayes to kind of like run out the A team first in the first match. Because usually when you have an underdog coming back for the rematch, they're a little hungrier in that second match, and they kind of are up to speed a little bit. So Emma Hayes putting sort of some of the subs and sort of like the bubble type players into the starting lineup for that second match to take on a Korea team that was up to speed, I thought was pretty smart, because you got to really see, okay, these players that we're going to try to make a decision on, what do they look like? And obviously this second match goes 1-0 at halftime. Definitely in the balance. Korea didn't look super dangerous, although they did force Murphy into some saves.
Oh, yeah.
But I did like that little touch from Emma Hayes.
Yeah, totally agree. I think it was a great look. I think it was a smart look. I think it was a way to also get some of those players who, we can call like kind of bubble Olympics players or fringe Olympics players. I think the term you used. Let's take a look. So those players that we're referring to, Alex Morgan up top, and then Jaden Shaw, Rose Lavelle, Crystal Dunn, Corbin Albert, and Lindsey Horan as your defensive midfielders. And then from left to right in the defense, Jenna Neiswanger, Emily Sonnet, Sam Staub, Casey Kruger on the right, and then Casey Murphy in goal. Those are a lot of good players still. And I think some of them, as we discussed it when we did our Olympic team draft. Most of those players we don't really consider bubble players. I think they'll be on the roster. That's still a hell of a good team, but it's great for them to get South Korea's best shot at the beginning of this match.
Absolutely. I have in my notes here, where would the U.S.'s second team rank worldwide?
Yeah.
That I was like, okay, are they fourth? Are they third? Absolutely stacked. And obviously, I don't make the rules. Only 18 can go to the Olympics. That has absolutely been the talk this week after we've gotten a chance to see everybody gel, and obviously like the explosion of the supernova Lily Yohannes.
Mm-hmm.
That was another funny moment here. In the 64th minute, there was a graphic that ran that said Mallory Swanson was named the Auto Trader key sub of the game.
All right.
Oops. Hopefully, Auto Trader gets a discount on the next go around or only maybe geeks like us notice that stuff.
Keenan Thompson does not approve. He would have definitely picked. He would have waited and picked Lily Yohannes for sure.
What's the rush?
Yeah, come on.
So I mentioned Emma Hayes, kind of playing it cool, trying to see what she's got in this second matchup. Korea returns 8 starters from the first matchup. So they sort of had their A team, however you want to think about it, locked in. Did you see anything from that Korea side?
Yeah, for sure. I thought they put in a good effort, especially defensively in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Casey Fair definitely looked like she belonged out there. I mean, obviously, no shame in being the second best 16-year-old on the pitch in this match. But seriously, no, just like I thought she handled herself really well. And I want to shout out our pal Blue, who drops knowledge in our YouTube comments from time to time. Blue pointed out in the last episode, I did mention that Casey Fair is the first interracial player to play for South Korea. And I think I had said she was born in Jersey. But Blue pointed out in the YouTube comments, Fair was born in South Korea to her Korean mom and her American pop, then moved to New Jersey. So Blue, thank you for the education. I got that one mixed up, and they actually mentioned it on the broadcast. So Blue on top of those things.
Shout out Blue for sure.
And I thought Ju Min Lee, Brighton forward, I thought she had some pretty good moments out there. But the entire South Korea attack had difficulty with Emily Sonnet and Sam Staub playing in those center back roles. And they would be the second choice center back pairing behind Naomi Girma and goal scoring machine Tierna Davidson. So,
yeah.
But I still thought Lee played pretty well out there. And then got a shout out, Seattle Reign FC player Ji So-yeon playing against her favorite manager Emma Hayes from her Chelsea days. G was going to score that free kick. I mean, that was very obviously going in, and I think against a lot of keepers that's going in. Right around the wall. Looks like it's going to side netting. It's a more interesting game for sure. I think it's a little bit of a different game if G scores that. But Casey Murphy with the strong dive, and we love a strong wrist game on the ITC. I thought it was a fantastic save by Murphy.
Yeah, fantastic save by Murphy. Fantastic camera work.
Yeah.
We got a real gnarly angle just to see that ball kind of bend around the wall and then see Murphy kind of dart out from behind, and the sports movie vibes continue. What can you say? And I totally agree on Gemman Lee and Ji So-yeon. Lee was, she was a dog in the midfield.
Yeah.
I mean, I think she was listed as one of their forwards on the lineup, but she was just kind of all over the field, just going 110 miles an hour.
Yep.
Wasn't surprised to see that she's a WSLer. Also, I believe a former Manchester City player. So shout out.
Mm-hmm.
We're kind of going backwards, right? With our coverage. So let's continue that trend. So rewinding all the way back to right around the 13th minute, I would say one of the ITC favorites, but also one of the ITC maybe bubble names. And again, we're not in charge. Don't come at us. It's nothing personal. We love Crystal Dunn. There's been a lot of hubbub about seeing her maybe in a more advanced position. We got to see it, and pays off. Crystal Dunn nets the goal, 13th minute. What did you see there?
Yeah, I feel like she went a little later when we did our team draft, which, by the way, I know we've referenced this a few times. Easy to find on YouTube, easy to find on Spotify. Please check that out. Well, we got damn near like 5,000 views on that on YouTube, so we're cooking a little bit.
Still a couple of you guys out there I haven't seen it, so go check it out.
Yeah, come on, where are we at? So I feel like Dunn went a little later in that draft. Spoiler alert, but I do feel like she's past the bubble. I think you got to put her on the squad for the exact reason that you're alluding to. And she played in this match. She played at fullback later in the match, but she gets that goal off just a brilliant cross from Jenna Neiswanger. And you mentioned Nicewanger being one of our favorites. I think she's quickly ascending to one of my favorite American players. I think she's an auto start. I think the passing is just too good. The cross comes in perfectly. It has the perfect angle. It swings right to Dunn, who times the run absolutely perfectly. Looks like she's shot out of a cannon running down there to make the finish. And all I got to say is if you're a Bats fan, you got to be looking at that and going, yeah, we would like to see a little more of that.
More of that for sure. I was so happy for Crystal Dunn too, because I think the commentator also mentioned it. Morgan is kind of driving up the field, fading off to the left, and Dunn is just wide open on the right. I mean, I think any ball to her, would have been extremely dangerous. And I love the Nicewanger point because she had a defender right on her.
Yep.
And so many times you'll see a player like that try to reset, make another move to create a little bit more space to then retry the cross. And by that time, maybe there's a second defender. The whole thing kind of fizzles out. But to Nicewanger's credit, she's like, all right, you're there. I'm just going to fizz it by your little boot. And it found its way to Crystal Dunn, and she obviously buries the finish. Very, very cool moment for the U.S. Women's National Team. And I think now we have some pretty recent proof, not that we needed it, that Crystal Dunn obviously could play pretty much anywhere.
Oh, yeah.
That was a great checkpoint for her to have hit in this friendly, just to kind of ease some of the maybe some of the pressure around, okay, like where can we put her? Because I think it's just so tricky. I mean, you just do the math and it just like hurts your brain thinking, okay, you take 2 goalkeepers, that leaves 16, 10 start, that's 6, as a sub. Those 6 need to be very, very, very versatile.
Yeah.
And I think Crystal Dunn absolutely smashed that point home that, she is versatility on the pitch.
100%. And, a lot of people pointed out on WOSO Twitter, I mean, Crystal Dunn's time in Chelsea was part of like the inflection point of maybe we could take this great attacking player and play her as a defender. And Emma Hayes was a part of that. And I would just say, like, watching the 2019 World Cup live and just really soaking it all in, that team was so unbelievably stacked, where there were moments where it was like, oh, well, Sam Mewis is our best player. Oh, wait, well, maybe Alex Morgan is our best player. Maybe Megan Rapinoe is our best player. Just like trying to figure it out. There were several moments in that tournament. I mean, there were several moments in that tournament where Rose Lavelle was the best player on the field. But then there were a bunch of other moments where I was like, is Crystal Dunn actually the best player? And like, it was like, I was always trying to figure out, like, Jesus Christ, this lineup is so stacked. I think there's a world where Crystal Dunn has 20, 30, 40 more U.S. Women's National Team goals. But she is such an unselfish player, such a leader, such a quality player. When you had her playing in the defense in the 2019 World Cup, it was that piece that made the USA almost completely unbeatable.
Interesting. That's going to lead me right into my point. But before I get there, I wanted to see if you kind of saw the same thing. So obviously we see the lineup cards before the match. Jenna Nicewanger is always kind of listed there as a left back, but she spent 90% of the 90% of the freaking game in a more advanced position than Corbin Albert or Lindsay Horan. And defensively, she's a player, but she's not, she's not a world beater defensively. Like, she has her elite skills, right? And I think like we understand, okay, if Nicewanger is going to be on the pitch, which I fully believe, she's almost as close to a locked-in starter. She's just so dangerous.
I think so.
But defensively, we played most of that match sort of in a back 3.
Yeah.
With Sonnet, Kruger, and Staub. Does that kind of change anything with regard to who you think we might take, who might start, what that might look like? Just because it sort of, to me, signals, if I'm Emma Hayes, I'm probably running stuff in these matches that I'm going to be running at least through the Olympics.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So if we think that this is going to be the setup, what does that mean for defensively what we want to do? Are we maybe thinking that it's a back 4 on paper, but ultimately it's a back 3? And then does that mean something specifically maybe for like an Emily Sonnet? You're our resident formation lineup shifting, attack shifting defensive guru. So how do you see this whole thing?
You nailed the exact player. Emily Sonnet playing center back in this match. That's not a coincidence that Emma Hayes wanted to see that look. I mean, Emily Sonnet is an established genius defensive midfielder.
She was good.
You have to make sure that she also has the ability to play multiple positions. I think that was already known, that you could play her at defensive midfield and then she could kind of drift back a little more into the defense. But for her to to be in a center back pairing. That added versatility, that's a real thing. And you have Staub out there who has a little more size than Sonnet. Now you have these 4 players between Gurma and Davidson, who are kind of your traditional center backs. And obviously, you already know what time it is with Gurma. Auto start, Sharpie, the thicker, like with the brown and white striped marker, like the even thicker one than a Sharpie. Gurma, first name you write on there.
Absolutely.
To know that you have an ability to put Emily Sonnet or Sam Staub back there, or you could maybe put Crystal Dunn at left back if you don't think it's the right look for Neiswanger, and then you move Sonnet up to the defensive midfield. And Neiswanger, she's a converted midfielder from what I understand. So yeah, she has that ability.
I think that's pretty on point because she basically plays in the midfield.
Yeah.
So if you're going at a team where you want a little bit more defense, you have Staub, you have Sonnet, you might have Dunn if all those 3 are on the roster. And then maybe you can move Neiswanger up. And then obviously subs matter, right? So you can kind of change things up on the fly. I think we're really starting to get some interesting little looks into where Emma Hayes' head might be at.
And we haven't even, we alluded to her in the 62nd minute wave of subs, but Sam Coffey is pretty close to a writer in and Sharpie also as a defensive mid. So
to me, yeah.
You got to think it's
sure.
Coffey and Haran back there, because I think Haran has really done great work in that spot as well. And we saw her; she's getting minutes like that in Lyon too. So you just got a lot of depth and a lot of versatility in that back 6, and you're going to need that against France, Germany, and Spain. You might need it against Zambia.
You never know.
Yeah.
It's definitely looking like. I wouldn't be shocked. We will see. I wanted to put forth one last question. The Lily Yohannes minutes were off the charts. Now, we've talked about not wanting to put a lot of pressure, but let's just make it a whole team thing, because we can also rewind back a little bit, look at those 3 subs, Sophie Smith, Mal Swanson, Trinity Rodman. When you collect all of these players and you've got the chemistry developing, does the addition of a Lily Yohannes, now, I'm not just going to say she needs to play like this, but if she's able to play, how do I want to describe this? If she's able to play to her average, right, which is smart, fast, completing passes, you don't need to score a bunch of goals or get a bunch of assists, just needs to kind of keep it moving, make the right decision, do it quickly, utilize her vision. Does that catapult this U.S. team into the favorite slot for this upcoming Olympics?
It's a spicy question, my good man. I don't think anybody's favorite's over Spain. The USA is great. The addition of Yohannes adds an additional layer to that versatility we're talking about in the back 6. Like we talked about Sonnet and Coffey in that defensive midfielder spot. You could put Yohannes in that defensive midfielder spot, or you could put her in a little more forward-leaning midfield spot. But man, Spain has 2 of the 3 best players in the world in Bonmati and Betayuelo. I think it's hard for anybody to be the favorite over them right now, but they're walking right back into being the second favorite for sure. There's no Great Britain in this tournament, obviously.
Co-favorite, yeah. I think that's fair. Maybe I just got I got a little excited at the moment, just kind of thinking it through. To juxtapose 2023 World Cup from 2024 Olympics and just how different this looks, just how dynamic this team looks.
Yeah.
It's exciting. But I did see one troubling stat. I think it ran around the 55th or 60th minute where possession was 50-50.
Yeah.
That was a little tough, just thinking through, okay, what is it going to look like chasing Spain around? If they're up in the 60s in terms of possession and we're just getting the ball and kicking it upfield and then they just win it right back and it's 2 or 3 minutes of defending for the U.S., that would be a long day.
Sure.
And probably pretty tough to deal with. But I think from an explosiveness standpoint, I think offensively, I think the U.S. is the best offense. You just look at those 3 players that came on. There's not a defense in the world that is going to feel comfortable staring down those 3 and being like, "Oh yeah, we've got this. Just let's play our game." It just has to send a shiver through your spine seeing that level of finishing ability.
That's totally fair. I think you're right on the money with that. And Kat Macario did not make an appearance in this match. She's kind of still playing her way into form. I think it would be silly if we didn't give the proper respect and the shout out. I know I mentioned Rose Lavelle spent long stretches of the 2019 World Cup looking like the best player on the pitch, no matter who USA was playing. Got her 100th cap in this one. Deservedly got it in a start. You think about those three attacking players, even if you give Macario the first 60 minutes at kind of that number 10 role to distribute to those three incredibly dangerous attackers, you could then take her off and either put on your choice of Jaden Shaw or Rose Lavelle. And then defenders have to look at each other again and be like, okay, new set of problems, everybody. Like everything is going to be a totally different look than it was before.
That's a great point because I think Emma Hayes is going to have to account for this.
For sure.
Just thinking about, all right, you could figure out the pathway of who you might face.
Mm-hmm.
You'll figure out, okay, in our group, are we going to finish? We'll hope to finish first, but obviously we got Germany. Anything can happen there. The group that we're in is loaded.
Oh, yeah.
You mentioned Zambia already. And then you've got Australia, who they're already getting ready. They already made their announcement. They know who's going to be there.
Yeah.
They're probably doing burpees somewhere down under, just getting ready for all this.
Mm-hmm.
One final question. Sorry to keep throwing questions at you, but all of these questions and concerns are just kind of bubbling up in real time here. Do you think that the U.S. might be at a disadvantage for essentially never playing games internationally that are not on U.S. soil, other than apparently the Olympics and the World Cup?
That is an awesome question, and one that I had not given a ton of consideration to. Obviously, I think teams come over here to maximize the amount of money that they can make. Well, maybe I should be careful. I'm not sure how much of the gate they get. I would imagine that's got to be part of it. There's obviously a level of exposure all the teams get. I'm sure there are a bunch of benefits. I could see that playing a role a little bit, but maybe even some ugly Americanism, exceptionalism, if you will. They were absolutely incredible in the 2019 World Cup in France, so it's a nice little return to that venue. Obviously, we're talking about a completely different squad, but France is a tough opponent. You might have to face them going through on your way to the final, without kind of reciting the bracket off the top of my head, but I don't think it's going to play much of a role. I think we have such a mix of players who play a tough schedule all the time in the NWSL. And then you always have, as we've joked about before, Lindsay Horan. She can go around, show them the spots, show them where to go hang out in France. We didn't even hear from Eva Gattino. I don't know if she's going to make the squad, but if you bring her in, she'll show you where to show up in Paris, where to go in Paris. So Corbin Albert could be a possibility, although I'll say that defensive midfield looking awfully crowded. I don't know. It's going to be real tough for Albert to make the squad.
Yeah, she does look like a player, though. I mean,
yeah,
she's a good player.
Yep.
I pulled the stat here. We're going to do a fun little UEFA Women's Champions League favorite 11 coming up here probably later this week. And I grabbed a fun Corbin Albert stat. In the entire Women's Champions League tournament, from the group stage to the final, she was second in tackles. Corbin Albert. She's not even a full-time starter.
Wow.
So I do like her game. Athletically, she's really good. She's a smart player. She's young. She has a ton of growth as well. I wouldn't be bummed to see her on the squad.
Sure. There are going to be a ton of tough cuts. I know Canada's manager, Bev Priestman, had talked about the need to expand beyond 18 roster spots.
Yeah, last little note there, the commentators mentioned this as well. NWSL will be in season.
That's true.
And European leagues will not be. So I think the energy levels could differ.
Sure.
When you think about players in the meat of the NWSL season versus, all right, we're in the offseason in Europe. That could play into some of the decision-making from Hayes. Hopefully we see this roster announcement coming up pretty soon here. A couple fun matches against South Korea in the books, 7-0 in aggregate. Anything else you want to hit before we get out of here?
I think the last thing we mentioned her in passing. Jaden Shaw is still great. I still think she could end up being one of the best players on the side.
Yep.
I saw the lineup and go, Jaden Shaw on the wing. I like her playing more in the middle of the park. But I think it was only right to get Lavelle her 100th cap as a starter, not to bring her on for her 100th cap. So I can understand that. and I have bemoaned putting Rose Lavelle on the wing in the past. So, like, obviously, if you have both of them on the pitch, like, you might want to try to, I don't know if you're going to play 4 midfield players and try to play them both centrally. One of them is going to have to get a little more comfortable on the wing, unless we're in a full rotation for those players. But other than that, I just think it's a pretty good problem to have when I'm picking out, I don't like Shaw on the wing because you got to play Rose Lavelle in the center. Or maybe it might come to the fact where I say, I don't like playing Rose Lavelle on the wing because you got to play Shaw in the center. So these are all very good problems to have.
Absolutely. I'm happy that you and I are here talking about it, not in some humid office somewhere trying to figure out who's actually going to be on this team and having to make those calls that
Yeah.
they mentioned on the broadcast as well. The MHA is going to call each and every player that was invited, let them know personally whether they're in or out. All right, man. I think we did it. This has been another episode of Into the Channel. Thank you for watching, listening, liking, subscribing, just plain hanging out with your boys. Appreciate you, Blue. Appreciate you, Dan. Appreciate you, Lily. Remember, like if you liked, and subscribe or follow Into the Channel, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to watch or listen. And a big thank you to my co-host as well, Mr. Grant Engel, for being well on his way to his 100th cap. What are we in? This is episode 42. We're almost there, buddy. Almost halfway there. So stick with me. We're going to make it happen.
You know what? I'm glad that we are the center back pairing. We are in Sharpie in the Into the Channel lineup. I wouldn't choose anybody else to do it with, buddy. One more shout out to our guy, Dan Yohannes. I got to tell you, watching the match with my wife, Jennifer, sitting next to me, who is a U.S. Women's National Team super fan, she was like a little emotional watching that happen when the Yohannes goal happens. She looked at me and said, this is a feeling that we haven't had for a little while as a national team. And then for her to see Lily achieve that in her first cap 10 minutes in, obviously knowing that, you know, we kick it with Dan and talk to him over those internets from time to time. Just a magical moment in the history of the national team, and one that I think probably projects forward looking good. So cheers to you, Dan. And we appreciate everybody for rocking with us. And we will see you guys next time.